This thing is really heavy. Get a good workout for this. Oh. Now I'm swole. Hello everybody, it's the Warhipster here, coming at you with another sprue review video. Yes, it's the unboxing, it's the sprue review, it's the getting a little bit overly giddy, I'm afraid, video about Skaventide. Yes, the whole box. Well, not the whole box, this is just the lid. The rest of it's being used to hold stuff right now at the minute. I'm sorry, I couldn't... Words! Yes, Games Workshop have been very, very kind, and they've sent me a copy of Skaventide. It's just the lid, don't worry, I can throw that around. So this has been the box that I have been excited for more than anything in the past couple of, well, years. Age of Sigmar, time and time again, every time there's a new box comes out, a core box I should say, or a launch box in this case, because it's not a core box, but every time a launch box comes out, it's just superb. Soul Wars, loved it. Dominion, adored it. And this one, well, this one is absolutely spectacular. I think this just might be the best box of Warhammer that Games Workshop has ever produced. Just for the sheer amount of stuff that is inside this box, and just how well it equips you to get started in Age of Sigmar. Because as mentioned, this is a launch box, it's not a core box. So this will be limited, like Dominion, like Leviathan, like that other one, Indomitus. That's the name from our 40k cousins. So this one will be limited, and it won't be the one that's like the core box going forward. They usually bring out those 3 sets that are like the small, medium, and large one. Those are the core boxes, but this is a launch box, and it truly does exactly that. It launches AOS 4. So as you can tell, I'm a little bit excited for Age of Sigmar 4. As you guys know, Age of Sigmar is my absolute favoritist thing that Games Workshop does. So I'm just going to warn you now, there's a little bit of, I guess, bias, confirmation bias maybe? I don't think that's the right word, but a little bit of bias in here because, well, I'm just more excited for this than anything else. So being able to be objective is something that I think I've managed to do in all of the footage, but these bits I film after the fact, and so I can't say. Either way, I think you should subscribe. If you love Age of Sigmar, or you're about to discover Age of Sigmar for the first time, you should subscribe to the channel. We've got tons of painting videos, including a lot of stuff for what I've been calling Project Spearhead, which we'll kind of get on into in the video, but this is all part of that. Skaventide has 2 spearheads, plus the rules to play Spearhead for every single faction. So if the 2 in the box don't take your fancy so much and you want to play something else, hey, guess what? The box has the rules for the other factions. It's just it's just mind-bogglingly cool. And once you're subscribed, you should hit the like button and should comment below letting me know if you're as excited for Age of Sigmar 4th edition as I am. Now, before we get into the actual sprue review part of this, I will just point out that I haven't actually managed to fully paint it all because it turned up like 10 days ago. It took me a little while to build because there's a lot of models in this box. But I have managed to get at least one of the spearheads done, but I'll show you that one a little bit later on. So with all that in mind, we're going to jump in to Skaventide, the sprue review. Like and subscribe and comment below. Okay, here we are then. The box of a lifetime. Warhammer Age of Sigmar Skaventide. The world's greatest fantasy miniature game. I didn't say that. They said that. Just there. Although I do happen to agree. It is my favourite. Anyway, we're just going to flip this absolutely humongous box over. It is so thick and so heavy. You have to just be very careful as you wield this. Although you can, you know, it's a proper workout moving this thing around. So there you go. There is the back. There is the contents in all its glory. We have the entirety of the Stormcast half, of course. The Lord Vigilant on Gryffstalker. The Lord Terminos is here. The Lord Veritant is over here with his Griff Hound. We have the Night Quester, which is somewhere around here. Up there. We have the Reclusians front and centre in the middle. And we have the Liberators and the Prosecutors and 5 more Liberators. So 10 Liberators in total, as you already know. We have in total 74 Citadel miniatures, we should point out. But we have 40 Clan Rats in here. We have the Claw Lord on Norbeast. We have the 3 Rat Ogres, the 3 Warlock Jezzails. We have the Grey Seer, the Warlock Engineer, and the lovely Rattling Warp Blaster. Now, also contained within the box is a ton of extra stuff in the form of the 272-page Warhammer Age of Sigmar core book, the 144-page Spearhead Fire and Jade, 1 double-sided game board, which you can see down here, and we have 36 card Spearhead decks, 17 General's Handbook cards, and 4 terrain features for playing your games of Spearhead. These 2 sides of the box will make up 2 spearheads, and that's probably where we're going to focus our painting tutorials first. But the hour of ruin is nigh, and the Ratmen hordes of the Skaven have invaded in their millions. So vile is their warp magic, so potent their arcane weaponry, that Sigmar has sent his most powerful champions to hold back the tide. The Stormcast Eternals. At their head march the Ruination Chambers, warriors reforged so many times that they are more akin to living weapons than the humans they protect. So, now that the narrative vamping is over, we can flip the box back over. As you can see, I have not looked inside this yet. This is a 100% authentic take on everything that's happening here. I've just opened it for the first time there, and off it comes. Here comes the lid. Oh, it is a big boy. I can tell you how thick the box is. Give me 2 seconds. It is 12 centimeters thick. And it's really heavy. Now, first things first, we have an absolutely glorious full artwork insert. It's not just the black paper with the Warhammer logo on it. I love that. Is it double-sided? No, we have Warhammer Age of Sigmar on the back there. There we go. Love that. That's such a cool piece of artwork. I love that very much. That might have to go up on the wall. Move it out of the way for the moment. And then we're of course presented by the thing we were all expecting, which is a huge stack of plastic. And the boxes, well, bags of sprues are here first. So we've got probably 5 40mm bases in there. No, that looks like more. 6 40mm bases. We have a huge pack of what I'm guessing are the Skaven bases there. So this is interesting. Maybe there's more packs of bases. There we go. We've got our first sprue. That looks like rat ogres to me. Lovely. The next sprue is going to be this one on the prosecutors. There we go. Single sprue for the prosecutors. We have like that for the liberators. And we have more liberators. This is like the sprues they did for the Quest of Soulsworn, which is pretty cool. These kind of trails of 3 small-sized sprues. We have our Warlock Jezzails there. Looks like that's on 1 sprue. We have a double-sided character sprue. So here we have, I think, the Grey Seer and the Warlock Engineer. And we have the Lord Veritant there with the Gryffhound as well. Possibly the Night Quester is on that one as well. We shall find out in due course. Here we have our Claw Lord on Norbeast. This is a ton of sprues, my goodness me. We have our Blaster, the big thing. We have the Lord Vigilant on Gryffstalker. And we have our Reclusians as well. And we have Clan Rats and Clan Rats. And finally, we have our terrain piece. Oh, that is a hefty sprue. That is some high quality spruage. We then have another cardboard insert, and this is another full colour one. There we go, lovely. You can share with your friends. Put that one out of the way, and then contained within we have base, large base, more smaller bases for our Skaven and our Warplock Jezzails, I'm sure. Many bases. So let's just pop that out of the way for the moment. I'm running out of room here. There's so much packed into one box. It's unbelievable. I have a little advert for what has just been previewed, the Slaughter at Hellcrown. It's your kind of, there is a code on the back there, which I'm not going to show you. So no one steals my code. There we go. Bring blight and ruin or stem the tide. This is the worldwide campaign to take part in. And now we have a bit of loose paper. We have a folio. We have 2 folios. How do we extricate you in such a way that doesn't damage things? Oh, I've got a bit of tearing. There we go. That's unfortunate on my one here. So this one looks to be possibly Fire and Jade. We'll have a look in there in a sec. Just need to create some room. And then this one is not a folio. In fact, it is paper. Oh, it's all wrapped up lovely and sealed with a sticker. That's gorgeous. I love that. Right. This box, just going to extricate it. There we go. We've got it. I love this, by the way. Let's just take a moment to appreciate that. That looks awesome. That's a little bit of a shame that mine's got a bit of a rip in here. I hope yours is not, but it's okay. I'll get over it, I'm sure. I'm just going to carve away the seal. There we go. So this... I mean, I love that they're doing this. This folio thing to contain all of your stuff is just really cool. I like it a lot. And, you know, it kind of seems obvious that I'm not sure why they haven't done it before, but they're doing it now and it's wonderful. So here we have our Spearhead cards, the Actually Twist deck, just there, contained, again, in a lovely little cardboard sleeve, which I now can't return. There we go. And we have our Gyron twist deck there as well. Lovely. We have our General's Handbook here. This is the cards for the General's Handbook. All the seasonal rules and things like that. Ooh. Lovely. I don't know anyone who actually uses those to create their armies. Let me know in the comments if you do. Seems weird to kind of deface them in many ways. Keep it all pristine. It's General's Handbook cards. Here we have our very important, also a bit of card. Okay, just add a bit of padding, I guess. Not that it helped mine. We have our no glue required. We have our instruction booklet. This is a hefty instruction booklet, as you would expect for 74 models in one single box. So just pop that to one side, and then this must be the gaming board. Yes. Okay, so we'll fold that out later. We'll have a good look at it, I'm sure. That's great. Okay, so that's... Oh, there we go. Dropping cards everywhere. We don't want that. Come on now. Can't hold it together, Josh. Got a job to do. Let's just get those cards away. There we go. Right, so we'll pop these away. We're going to need that instruction manual, so I'm going to keep it out for now. We're just going to close this one up. So far so good. We've only had a bit of damage to the folio, and that's good, because none of the products have been damaged. just the handy dandy little carrier for all my spearhead rules. But that's great. I mean, it all fits down into that one little area. And I'm sure, having removed the instruction book and stuff like that, Fire and Jade will probably slide in there. Okay, so we can get that out of the way. And here it comes. This must be where we keep Fire and Jade. I don't really want to rip the paper. It feels silly now. Okay, we'll just go one at a time. Here is the glorious new core book. The wonderful Fire and Jade. And that is all she wrote, folks, apart from this, which you could use to bind them. Those things are never going to make their way back into this, so I'm not sure why I was being so careful, but it felt like at the appropriate moment, you know, to be somewhat solemn or reverent. I don't know. I'm not sure what the right word is there. And there we go. There I have it. The last two components of the box. As you can see, there's absolute tons of stuff in here, but here we have Fire and Jade and the core book all together at long last. Okay, so here we have the instruction manual, and as mentioned, it is an absolutely weighty boy. It is really thick, and there's a lot of stuff to point out here on the first page. So there it is, Skaventide, no glue required, and here is the instruction manual. So firstly, you get your lovely contents and your key of things that are, you know, this is what the sprues are, in fact. So what they've done a really nice job of here is they've actually kept the sprues mostly separate. There's only one here, which is a kind of Stormcast and Skaven hybrid, and that is sprue B. That's when we talked about being the sort of Veritant and the Skaven, the Grey Seer and things like that. Whereas the rest of it, the Stormcast are all separate and the Skaven are all separate, which is really nice because it does mean that it's more likely to, you know, see these models come out by themselves, as it were, which is good because sometimes, you know, you have a component from the Veritant here which makes it difficult to sell it as a single individual model. But this gives me hope that you should be able to get all of these individually at some point. It's nicely laid out, so if you're struggling to find a sprue or you're not sure that you've got the right one, you can just check here in the contents to check that you're looking at the correct sprue. It then gives you a list down here of all the bases that are available. We have 44 25 mils, 2 32 mils, 19 40 millimeters, 3 50 millimeter round bases, 3 60 millimeter round bases, 1 75 millimeter, 1 90 millimeter oval base. That's the same for the 75 and the 60, and then we have a 105 millimeter oval base. This will be for the cannon, I'm absolutely certain of that. We have our terrain sprue there as well. Then up here what we have is we have the use the correct bases diagram, and that's what this bad boy is for. This is to give you an indicator as to which one is the right sprue. So for example, this base that I've just picked up, if we pop it on the diagram like that, we can see immediately that this is a 60 millimeter oval base. So when it comes to building these models, you'll find the model that tells you to do a 60 millimeter oval base. It's these ones to use. Always use this unless you are really good at spotting the ranges, but this is always a really nice little diagram for you. Then we have the build variants thing here on the in the intro for the instruction manual. Now this will tell you that there's two different pathways with which to build these models. An example they've used here is the prosecutor. It means that you can choose which track you want, which way do you want it to look, blue or green. You could probably do a mixture of the two, possibly, depends on the components, but these are the two different variants. We then have an explanation of the symbols. The little exclamation mark means special instruction, take care. The little blue is the variant assembly. When you have three little shields next to each other in a circle, it's this one right here. That means a choice of parts, and then ×2 means you're building this twice, in case it doesn't look like there's enough instructions for the said unit. We then have an explanation of the measuring sticks, which is very cool, without having to measure them ourselves. K10 is a 6-inch long measuring stick, and K11 is a 3-inch long measuring stick. And then between each of the little kind of diamond shapes, not the rats, it's a 1-inch move. It's a 1-inch distance, which is a nice explanation of it. Then we go into the instructions proper, kicking things off with the Lord Vigilant on Gryffstalker and moving through it, through all the Stormcast. And then once the Stormcast are done, it's on to the Skaven. So we're going to be following this along in terms of what order we're going to be building these models in, and consequently what order we're going to be sprue reviewing them in, as you can see. So we'll check those out a little bit later, and then the instructions for the terrain are on the back, which is cool. No variants there, so you know, bear that in mind. So as mentioned, the place we're going to start is on page 1 with the Lord Vigilant on Gryffstalker. There he is, looking glorious. Now, in order to build him, we are going to require this sprue. It's the first sprue, sprue A, which we can match with our contents in the front page, just there. As you can see, that looks to be about correct. Just turn it upside down. There we go. That's the one. Just caught my finger on that, so just be careful of that. So we're going to require that sprue, and we're going to require a 90mm oval base. There it is. That is, in fact, this one. And we figured that out by using the diagram just there, and it covers up that line, and there's the 90 just showing there. 105 is there, so we know that this is the correct base. So first things first, looking at the Lord Vigilant on Gryffstalker then. Here it is. And well, the first thing I'm noticing right now is we have a choice of parts. There we go. Right at the beginning, A2, A3. So we have a bare head and a helmeted option. We're probably going to go with the helmeted option because it's really cool. But we're just, that's something to point out. 2 different options for the head, which is great. Love that. You can see it down there painted with the bare head, which is awesome, in the colours of the Hammers of Sigmar down here. In fact, Hallowed Knights in the box, Hammers of Sigmar down there. So there is an option. Yes, thought there might be. I suspect that's going to be the same for a lot of this. Yep, Prosecutors in Hammers of Sigmar, Reclusians as Hallowed Knights, Lord Terminos as a Hammer of Sigmar. That looks really cool. Look at that. Doesn't that look awesome? Anyway, there we go. So we have only the one choice of parts just there, A2 and A3. So bear that in mind. There's no kind of alternate weapons or different posing for the Gryffstalker itself. It's just those bits. It looks to be 1, 2, 3, 4. Choice of that would be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 components in total for the Lord Vigilant. Of course, there is 20 because you've got the extra head, but we're going to be using 19 components to build this guy. Right, let's pop this to one side, shall we? And have a look at the sprue. So here it is, the sprue, the first of the Skaventide sprues. So what are we dealing with here? Well, first thing I'm noticing is the axe does not have a connection point on the cutting edge of the blade, which is absolutely wonderful. It's just up here on the flat head of the axe, which is absolutely fine. We can deal with that, no problem. We also have a good lord, connection point just here on one of the pegs. So these are push fit, so you will just want to watch out for not accidentally clipping those off. However, one thing you can do is, if you don't want to use the push fit aspects of this, you can clip the pegs off and use glue instead. However, you don't want to use glue, you're going to be wanting to use push fit components. So you're just going to have to watch out for these little pegs. They can tend to look a little bit like bits of sprue, like this one here on component 14. That can look a little bit like a sprue, kind of like this. You see that little kind of gate, that extra kind of stringy bit. So do watch out for that you don't end up clipping those off if you intend to use them. So, axe, we're in good shape. We do have connection points on the flame here and here, so you will want to watch out for those. Make sure those are nice and smooth, and don't kind of gouge them too much with your mold line remover or your knife, because you want to have nice smooth flames. It sounds weird, but you do. Now we have a shield up here where we have the connection points on the outside of the shield body here around the trim of the shield. However, we do have them on the spindly little kind of spikes at the top of it, so just be careful there. That's going to be a slightly tricky bit to get to, and again, just move with the curvature of the piece of on the sprue. You don't want to kind of cut it straight through and accidentally kind of flatten those off, because it will be noticeable. We have a toenail or a toe for the Gryphstalker, and that actually is a connection point right there on the knuckle by the talon. We don't like to see that. That's a no-no. That's a little bit yuck. Again, just going to put this out of the way. We have the body here. This is connected around the edges. That's fine. This one will be a little bit kind of more difficult to get to, but it shouldn't be too much of a problem. Again, there's a peg. Just watch out for that. We do have a tiny little bit here, component 8, which has quite a hefty peg on it. Sometimes they don't put a hefty peg on that, so it doesn't actually sit very well in the components. You end up having to use glue anyway, but that one's quite hefty. That's good. And then we have a part of the Gryphstalker itself. Now we have a connection point right here on the, let's call it the wrist or ankle, whatever you want to, but that is going to be a little bit tricky. Same here on the back of this knee of the rear leg. You want to be careful with these, because these are the kinds of areas where it's very easy to kind of just kind of judder across the piece with your knife or mold line remover when you're trying to remove that extra sprue flash. You don't want to do that. You want to be careful. You want to be nice and smooth. You want to apply even pressure, and you want to move around the curvature of these details. And from this bit and on this bit, it's worth going across it in this direction. So you see how I've got the component? You want to go that way rather than that way, because that way you can move with the curvature rather than flatten it off that way. You want to go that way. See? Does that make sense? I hope it does. You can't answer. At least you can't now. You can in the comments. We have our shield arm here. Again, connected up here, but that is going to be a kind of edge component, so that should be absolutely fine. And on the inside of the hand, where you won't really see it, it should be fairly simple to try and smooth those bits down. The head, again, it's just going to be a slightly complicated clip point just in there. It's quite mobile on the sprue anyway, so just watch out for that. Again, don't take the peg off. We have one of these weird bits. This is actually part of the component. Don't cut that off. You need that because it's just kind of a place where a peg is going to later sink into it. So just be warned around there. The other head here, again, same deal as the one with the helmet. At least there isn't any connection points on the spikes of this helmet. That's really good. I can't really see much in the way of mold lines, or we do have some here on the body. Don't know why I'm doing that now, but I am. So, you know, when you can see something like that on the back of a leg, means that there's probably a slightly small one just over the top of the bald head. So just watch out for that. The other half of the body, we have a connection point right there again on the smooth kind of flesh of the leg, so watch out here. And then here on the back of the cloak, where we have a piece that's almost crossing the kind of 2D plane of the sprue quite a bit. We have quite a chunky mold line going along here, so again, just be careful with that. And you want to make sure that you're kind of being quite gentle with your knife along this bit, because again, you don't want to gouge out the cloak. it does look like it's an overlapping cloak, which is quite interesting. What I mean by an overlapping cloak is you've got this bit here, which should overlap into this rather than be like an edge going all the way down. So hopefully we avoid some gaps. However, if you think there is going to be a gap, you can just use a little bit of glue along this edge, or indeed along one of these edges, just to make sure that you press those bits together, and it should deal with any gaps. The only other thing to point out here is the Gryffstalker's head, armor and horns, where we have connection points on the horns themselves. We don't like this because this is annoying. It's fine down here, here and here. It would even be fine kind of just there, but this is an outward facing kind of horn for the head of the Gryffstalker, and it'll be really obvious. So again, just be really careful. Move with the curvature of the horn. Come at it from this direction rather than going this way, because then you're cutting into the curve. This is kind of the I think it's convex, and this is concaved. If you go this way towards the where it curls out in, you can sometimes gouge right into that kind of area just there, or indeed accidentally cut the tip of the horn off if you're too kind of zealous with your knife. So just watch out for that. Move this way, away from the tip towards the body. That should make it a little bit easier. The last thing, actually, I thought this was the last thing, but this is the last thing for real this time. We do have the tail here, and the connection points are on the smooth parts of the tail, and these are going to be nice and obvious if you don't kind of get them nice and smooth with your knife or mold line remover. So again, just be really careful. Move with the curvature of the component, and you should be fine. Otherwise, I'm very excited to build my first model. So it's a reasonable start. It's not the worst model I've ever seen, but it's not the best. Let's see how long it takes to build, shall we? So we're finally off and running. The Lord Vigilant on a Gryffstalker is now fully built, and well, it was a pretty easy build. What I had to do though was just use a little bit of glue on that cloak, just in those seams, just to make sure I pressed it together so that we didn't get a gap. It was just the easiest way of doing it, so it was not too bad. That was okay. I liked it. Pretty cool. Anyway, we can pop the Gryffstalker to one side now, because now we're going to move on to the Lord Veritant and his Gryffhound down here. So in order to build this, we are going to require sprue B, which is this one, which is the one that is split across Skaven and Stormcast. Now, this is a risk, but I'm hoping it should be fine and that there are no component crossovers, but we'll find out. But we're going to split these two sprues. That wasn't a reassuring snap. It came over the part quite nice. The reason it's a risk is because if there is a component on here, or there's a component from this on here, we might lose the sprue. But we will require half of sprue B, which in the contents is the second sprue just there, in order to build them. This is hinted at because it's B1, B2, B6, B5, B4, etc, etc. So we're going to pop the Skaven half to one side for the moment. And in addition to this, we are going to require a 40mm round base and a 25mm round base. Now, earlier you saw me pull out 2 bags of bases. This bag of bases, there's no pegs. So I initially thought, immediately go for this one. It's a 40mm round base, and they say that there's no glue required. So maybe this is just an extra bag of bases I've acquired for some reason, but I don't know yet. But there you go. That is a 40mm round base. But what we want is the one with the hex holes. We don't want these ones. So there you go. Interesting. Anyway. Lord Veritan. So, firstly, there are no options here. There's no kind of optional assembly. There's no different poses or anything like that across both the Lord Veritan and the Gryph-hound itself. It's just this. I mean, I say just this. This is incredible. If you haven't seen the original Lord Veritan, do look it up, because it's night and day. Anyway, there's no optional assembly. There's no alternate heads. Although, if you don't like this kind of blind warrior look, you can always go for a helmet, probably from somewhere else in the box. Or if you've got a large stock of helmets, for example, you could probably find one in the Quest to Soulsworn, for example, if you've got a box of those. Anyway, there we go. No optional extras for the Lord Veritan. So, I'm going to pop this to one side. It's only on that one page as well, I should say. And actually, before we do that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 for the Veritan, 12 components. And the Gryph-hound is 1, 2, and 3. So 15 in total. Lovely. It's a nice round number-ish. Sort of. Not really. Anyway, again, we've got more. I just caught my finger a little bit on these. These are sharp. They're not like spiky sharp. They don't hurt, but I do feel it across my skin. So just watch out for the points on these things. It's cool. It means they're very detailed, but just watch out because you don't want to kind of ping off too much of it. Or grind any of your sprues into like the table or anything like that. Anyway, let's have a look, shall we? So first things first, I'm always drawn to it immediately. It just about passes. We have a sword just here. Now, as you can see, the sword is connected at what almost looks like the cutting edge, but instead it's not. That is actually part of the design on the hilt, just before the is that a hilt? Cross guard? It's the bit where the blade slots into. I think it's called a hilt. I'm not sure if that bit is the hilt. I know this bit is here. Anyway, doesn't matter. We're getting bogged down. So this just about passes inspection. We have a connection point though on the gauntlet itself. So just be careful just there. Just make sure you kind of cut from this direction in that way to smooth that one down. Because again, you don't want to come in this way and accidentally take the edge off that part of the bracer. We have a slightly more difficult clip point just in there. So that one's going to be interesting to get to. Just watch out for it, basically. It should be fine, but just keep an eye on it. Make sure you're not, again, taking the edge off of the armor piece just there. The body here is actually connected on the kind of the push points here, and on the underside of the foot, which is great. That's a fantastic component. And again, here we have connection points on areas that connect into other things. So this is the plug point here, and then we have this on the edge of the cloth, which is great. We love to see that. This part of the cape is again around the outside. It doesn't look like it overlaps. Oh no, there we go. It does overlap once, so that's a no-no. We don't like to see that. Again, be careful with this bit. Move with the curvature of the cape. You don't want to take too much off it. We have the staff here, which is connected right in there. There's a little spike just there on the sprue on the staff, so just watch out here. You don't want to clip that one off. That's going to be quite a congested clip point. And then this one is actually on the elbow. That's actually on the smooth helmet armor part, so that's a big no-no as well. And then this one is right on the edge of the brassiere, and in fact the brassiere is in two parts. So the connection point down here is fine, but this one is right up against it. So I would probably clip both these bits out, this bit and this bit here, and actually just smooth it down together. That way you make sure it really kind of lines up properly. It does seem to overlap a little bit just there based on the way that component is working. There's a little lip just there, so that's even more important to make sure that's nice and smoothed down. The Gryph-hound's body here is connected to the sprue on smooth flesh, so that's a no-no, and that's a no-no. We don't like to see that. These are just kind of potential hotspots for trouble. But then we are connected on the underside of the feet here and here, which is okay. The head, we have a connection point on the actual peg, but this one is on the top of the smooth bald head. So you want to watch out for this. I'm going to move again just with the curvature of the head so you don't kind of flatten off the top of her head. This Lord Veritant is a woman. This part of the body, connection point on the underside of the foot peg, and then this one right in there where it's going to be connected to another bit of the cloak, so that's nice. But again, it looks like we've got a seam just here, so you might want to use a little bit of glue just to smooth that part out. Again, similarly just over there, as that moves over the top of the shoulder, we shall see in due course. We have connection points on this leg on the underside of the foot. That's fantastic. And then this one again in an area where you're never going to see because that was right in there in the groin area. The head here of the Griff Hound is actually connected there on the front of the armor, so that's a no-no. We don't like to see that because that's a really obvious place. So again, just be really, really careful with your knife. Don't apply too much pressure. Move in this direction, going away from the gem, because otherwise you might end up kind of scraping off the gem if you apply too much pressure and therefore slip a little bit. The shield here, the absolutely fantastic shield, is connected around the outside, so that's fantastic. We love to see that. And then we have our shoulders, again just a single connection point on each. That's fantastic. Lovely little model, this one. So, well, two models on one sprue. Isn't that nice? So it is now time to build the Lord Veritant. So of course we're going to throw over to our time lapse just to see how long it takes to build. So we'll be right back in just a second. So we've built the Lord Veritant and the Griff Hound, and well, I should just point something out here, is that the Lord Veritant, absolutely fine, goes together wonderfully on a 40mm base. However, the Griff Hound, it says in the instructions to do this on a 25mm base. This is a 32mm base, because when you try and put it on a 25mm base, I can't for the life of me get it to fit. See? So it might be that we need to cut the peg off and glue it down so that it actually fits on the 25mm base. But for now I've just put it on a 32mm for it to make it a little bit more sense, or to look a little bit more proper. So it might be that we need to find a 32mm base from somewhere, because there's only 2 of these in the box and you require 2 of these for the characters. But for now it's a perfectly fine placeholder. But that is just something to watch out for, because I think it's supposed to go on a 32, not a 25, because like I said, I just can't get it to fit. And look, it just makes sense on the 32. They usually are, these little companion ones, I'm pretty certain. Anyway, next up, we're actually going to be building 3 units all at once, because they're all on the same sprue. So, the next 3 are the Lord Terminos, the Knight Quester, and the Reclusians, including their Memorians. Now, the Memorians also accompany the Lord Terminos, so it doesn't tell you to do them here, do 1 here, and then do the other 2 down here. It just tells you to do all 3 here. So that's interesting. Probably means that they're also not war gear locked or anything like that. So that's cool. So we're going to build all of these, like I said, because they're all on the same sprue. So the Lord Terminos doesn't actually have any optional assembly things going on, and neither does the Knight Quester, as you can see. And neither do the Reclusians, and neither do the Memorians. So there's no optional extras or anything like this. They are as they are. They come out of the box. So in order to build them, we are going to require 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 40mm round bases. We're also going to require 3 25mm round bases as well, because we need to get all, well, I guess it's technically 4 units. It's not, it's 3 units. So I'm going to be building all of these at the same time. So here it is. There's the single sprue. As you can see, it's chock-a-block full of incredible stuff. So, well, let's pick a place to start. Let's go for down here on the what I assume is mostly Terminos and Night Quester bits. Certainly looks that way. Although we do have axes and things for the Reclusians. Anyway. So, first things first to point out, we have the cloak here. We have the connection points actually on the cloak here, here, and here, and here. And when I say they're on the cloak, they are actually on the smooth fabric rather than the edge, unlike this one, which is right down there on the edge of the, well, it's the hem of the cloak. So that's okay, but these ones you are just going to have to want to be very careful for. Axe heads, we have the connection points on the tops of the axe, not on the cutting edges of the blade, which is great. That is consistent across all of the axes, and the sword just about gets away with it again. It's not on the cutting edge, but it is on the that bit of the sword. The Terminos' axe, which I just absolutely adore, that is also connected on the axe head and not on the cutting edge of the blade. This is fantastic. We have our shields, 1, 2, and 3, and I think there's more shields, although I can't see them right now. Nope, looks like it's just the 3. They're all connected around the outside, on the hard parts of the shields, not on the paper, which is good. Now, what we do have is we have a lot of kind of... Well, I have a peg that's just come off. There we go. See? For this cloak. So that has literally just fallen off in my hands. So that's a bit disappointing. That's going to require a bit of glue. That's a shame. That is component number 6. Oh well, can't be helped. But the cloaks do appear. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The cloaks appear to all be in one piece, apart from where they actually connect to the model, which is great. They've learned their lesson from the Praetors, which were not like that. The Praetors, in fact, had kind of their cloaks in 2 halves, like this sort of thing, which wasn't, you know, wasn't great for assembly. They were a bit tricky to actually assemble, and you know, not have any gaps. So there's things to love, and also, you know, it's a bit of a shame that push fit peg is gone, but there we go. Bodies seem mostly to be connected with a mixture of on the underside and around the outside of areas. For example, this one here is around the outside, here, here, here. The Night Quester is similar. This will be covered up with a pauldron, which is absolutely fine, but we do have a connection point in the flame of the torch that he's carrying, which is a little bit tricky to get to. So just watch out there. We have a shoulder here on this cloak that actually will be half and half to shoulder, so that will be something that we have to watch out for to make sure we don't have a seam going right down the middle of a shoulder plate, which is a pauldron. Sorry. I apologize to the armor aficionados out there. So these are just things to watch out for. These things you spot as you go through this type of thing. We have connection points on the actual cloth of the fabric here. We have it here as well. We have it here and here. We have it here as well. So none of the cloaks escape it. You are going to have to be careful with all of the cloaks. It's not all just all nicely connected around the outside of the piece. The bodies, though, like I said, they seem to mostly be very, very similar in many respects. Like, for example, there around the outside of that kind of tabard of mail, here on the underside of the foot, here around the outside of that rondel on the chest plate. Same up here on this one. It's a pretty good sprue all in all. There's obviously going to be areas that are slightly tricky, like the top of the Terminos' axe. So here and here, those are right on the apex of those gauntlets. So you are just going to have to be really careful of the angle of attack here with the knife, because again, you don't want to flatten it off because it will be very noticeable because it's right on top of the. Since the axe is like that, so it's here and here, and there's supposed to be like an angled plate, but with the connection point being right along there, you're just going to want to come at it like this rather than just coming straight across the gauntlet like that, because otherwise you'll end up flattening it off, and that's not necessarily what you want. We do have the occasional loose leg like this one here, where we actually have a connection point on the frontwards facing part of the thigh of the armor, which is not great. That was always kind of is prone to being slightly difficult to work with. And then, of course, we have the Memorians as well scattered around, and here we have a ton of connection points inside the cloth, here and here. We have it here and here as well, and we have there on the bag and there on the under the armpit, and so on and so forth. So they're not in great shape. Again, just be really, really careful with your knife. Don't apply too much pressure as you are smoothing down those pieces. And so far, I can't really spot too much in the way of massive mold lines. Of course, there are going to be a couple, like for example on this cloak, I'm sure that there's one in there because it crosses the 2D plane of the sprue. But overall, it's not bad. I like it. I like it. I've seen worse. It is a shame that we lost that peg, so that is going to lose a mark, unfortunately, because we do have to use glue. I always like to get through these without having to use the glue, but unfortunately it's not meant to be this time. So we'll be back in just a minute with our time lapse, and we're going to do 3 of these in a row because we're going to build the Lord Terminos, the Knight Quester, and the Reclusians with their Memorians. So I'll see you in just a sec. The forces of the Stormcast are now growing. We have done the Reclusians, the Memorians, and Lord Terminos, and the Knight Quester. Good lord. These are some of the prettiest Stormcast models I have ever seen in my life, and I love them. Right, we must move on to the next set of really pretty models in this box, which is the Prosecutors. Here they are. So our Prosecutors, there are 3 of them in the box in total, and we have a variant option here for our Prosecutor Champion. So you can build it as a champion, or you can build it as a normal Prosecutor. You're probably going to build it as a champion, but it says to me that this kit is not going to have a dual hammers option, that this is just how it's going to be, but we'll find out in the future. Just the tridents for now. Now, what we have here as well is we also have optional assembly, and I've looked at it quite carefully, and I need to look at the sprue, but when I look at that piece of paper, it says to me that there is a helmeted faceplate and a non-helmeted faceplate. So it's in there. It's just all of the box art has them without their faceplates on. But that is an optional assembly for all 3 of our Prosecutors. So there's number 2 just there. Oh no, in fact this is the green track of Prosecutor number 1, D33, D34, I'm pretty certain. We have D5, D6 there, and D17 and D18, so it is optional for all 3 of them by the looks of things, but you don't have optional poses on all 3 of them. It's only on the champion, so blue or the green track. I'm going to be following the blue track for this guy. We will build it up first, up to that point. It looks incredible, and then we add our choice of head, leg, and then the weapons and all that kind of thing. And that seems to be the case for all 3 of our Prosecutors. So These have had possibly the best glow up in Age of Sigmar, because the old ones are fine, but they're not as cool or as lithe as these ones. The other ones, the old ones, it's kind of like, can you even fly, bro? It's kind of the vibe they go for. Anyway, to build them, we will require 1, 2, and 3 40mm round bases, and we will require this sprue. It is a single sprue, but it is divided into 3 sections. 1 prosecutor per section, I would hope, is how it's been laid out. But we shall see, of course. Might be some component crossover. But what we're going to do is we're just going to break all 3 of these apart, just so they're a little bit easier to look at. There we go. Get that one apart. And we'll start with this one here on the left-hand side. Now, this looks like it's going to be our champion sprue, because we have the trident and we have the spear there. The trident is the champion's weapon. The lance, I think, is what it is. Or javelin. It's probably Stormcaller javelins is what they used to be called. We appear to be having some focusing issues. There we go. That's a little bit better. Okay, so firstly, we have the 2 weapons here, as we've mentioned before. The connection points are not on the cutting edges of the blades, but they are perilously close here. And also we have a slightly more difficult cutting point just there on the kind of the pommel of the spear. I'm not sure if it is a pommel. The counterweight, maybe, is what it's often supposed to be. And we also have it down there. It's quite congested, so just be careful just when you're applying your clippers to it, because again, you don't want to like kind of take the edge off of that part of the spear. Same up here. Again, you also don't want to take off the actual tip of the twin-tailed counterweight type thing. We have a bit of rock here, which is absolutely fine how it's connected. It doesn't really matter. We have 2 shields, the option for the champion and the non-champion. These are connected around the outside, which is really good to see. Now, the body, we have a connection point here in the rock, which is fine. We then have right there on the front of the shin guard, and that would be quite a prominent detail. Because, you know, while they're leaping into the sky, so it is quite that the instruction manual just wants to say hello. You can see that piece of paper just slowly edging its way. Just stay out of the way. So yeah, the shin guards here, you are just going to want to be really careful around here, because you don't want to kind of accidentally gouge too much out of that front of that shin. So just be quite careful. We do have a connection point there on the push point, which is absolutely fine. And then we have these wings themselves, where we have connection points on the armor here, and we have that where it's kind of connects to the other wing, which is absolutely fine. But then we have it in the kind of feathery, fiery wings parts here and here and here. And these are going to be one of those ones where you're going to want to just move with the curvature of the piece, because again, you can end up kind of flattening those off, and you don't necessarily want to do that. We have a fleshy face there, so this is probably one of those bits that might go over to another one of the models, but we do have the helmeted face just there, the armored front, which is fantastic. However, it is connected right there on the top of the helmet. I know that it does go into a crest, which I can't see on this sprue, so maybe that's on one of the other ones. And the same for this one as well, right on the top of the helmet. There's been a bit of stress applied here to this component, so just watch out for that. You want to make sure that's nice and flat when you do in fact put your crest in. Yeah, look, there's the crest. You see, it kind of covers over the top, which isn't the end of the world, but you are going to want to make sure it's nice and flat. Okay, so we have our other leg here, and we have our front of our body, where we have a connection point on the front of that kind of hip plate. So that's one of those, that's a big no-no. We don't like to see that, because that's a frontward facing smooth flat detail, which can be quite easy to gouge with your knife or mold line remover. So be careful around here, and also on this one, because it's the other hip plate, and that one's facing directly up, so you'll see that one from the top down. So just be careful. The shield arm as well, we have a connection point right on the elbow, the rounded armor of the elbow. So you want to be careful around here, because well, we don't like to see that, but again, just move with the curvature of the piece rather than kind of straight cutting it. So sprue number 1, it's not the best, but also not the worst. So now I'm going to go for sprue number 2. Here it is. And I think it's going to be largely the similar feedback. Again, the leg here, connection plate on that front hip plate, here on the back of the leg, where you're going to have to move with the curvature of it. The spear is absolutely fine. It's not got a connection point on the cutting edge of the spear, which is great. The wings, the same as sprue number 1. We have more of the armoured heads and the non-armoured heads. They've got the helmet on the top, right, but it's the faceplate underneath, which I think people were worrying wasn't going to exist, but it is in there, which is cool. Shield, again, same connection point around the outside, but then we have the leg here with, again, another connection point right there, right on the tip as well. We talked about it before on the terminus. That is the apex of that piece of armor where the connection point right is, so you're going to have to be really careful you're getting the correct angle, so as again, not to flatten it right off. We have one of those crests, 2 of those crests, in fact, that we talked about, and they're okay. They're connected here inside the piece, which will be inside the torso, which will be absolutely fine, and then here at the neck, which is great. Same there and there, so that's not bad. This body is actually in better shape as well because it's connected around the outside of that male skirt, and here on the push peg points, and then here male skirt again. The only one that's a little bit difficult there is that kind of, what would you call it? That would be like a sort of flanking plate. It kind of goes right underneath the ribs, just there. That is a flat, smooth detail. It is a bit congested in there, so just be careful with your clippers. Finally, we have sprue number 3. Here we have our 3rd prosecutor, as well as another one of the crests that we didn't have on the first sprue. So like we said, it's confirmed there is a bit of crossover here and there. We have 2 crests here, in fact, so one of these must be the champion's crest from somewhere. Wings, again, exactly the same. We have more heads here, and here. We have another one of the spears where there is no connection point on the cutting edge. This body is like the first sprue where we have connection points in the rock, which is okay, but then we have it right there on the front of the shin plate as well, and then we have it on the push peg, and then we have it here on the kind of the shoulder joint, which will be covered up by the arm, but it is what it is. Okay, fairly consistent feedback throughout, some better, some not so great. I guess it only leaves us to find out how well we're going to put these together, and indeed if they are going to stand on their bases much better than the last iteration of prosecutors. Because like I said, in the first Age of Sigmar Mighty Battles in an Age of an Ending War box, they did not sit well on those bases at all. They were very top heavy. They were very, very, very tricky models to maneuver. So we shall find out now what it's like to build the prosecutors and how good they are. So with our prosecutors all built, as you can see, they look absolutely fantastic. Much better than the old prosecutors. They stand, for one. Well, you can push them over, of course, but they actually balance on their bases, which is really nice. So that's great. Massive thumbs up. They also just look incredible. I think they look absolutely fantastic. A real glow up for the prosecutors. Much needed. Looking incredible. Right. Now that we've done the prosecutors, it's time to move on to the last unit of Stormcast, which is the meat and potatoes. We, of course, have the new improved Liberators. So, in order to build them, we are going to require 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 40mm bases. And then we're going to, of course, need the instruction manual. Here it is. And we are at the halfway point in the instruction manual, which is cool. You can, as denoted by the fact that the staples are there. So, all models in the unit must be armed with the same weapon option, is what it says up here. So the same weapon option is hammer and shield, or 2 hammers. The grand hammer is obviously something that you can also have. I would just build it based on what you can see here in the pictures. It's either this or that. Now I'm probably going to just be building this because I don't really like the 2 hammer option. It kind of looks a bit silly to my mind. It looked fine when it used to be 2 swords, I thought, but swords are not in here. It's only hammers. I'm not sure if swords are even going to be a part of this edition going forward. But I always really like a classic Liberator, shield wall, put the shields up and have the hammers and the Grand Hammer. So that is what we're going to be doing for both units. Now you can build it as a unit of 10, as you can see here, because it says choose the variant you want to build. Champion, Liberator. There you go. So you could just have 1 of 10 or 2 of 5 with 2 Liberator Primes. Although they're just called champions these days, but Liberator Prime is how I know it. Now there we go. Once again, you follow with the blue. You can, of course, go for the purple track, which is this one up here, which is the dual hammers instead, if you want to. And then if we flip it over, we can also see E10 and E11. There's 2 different faces, and same for E4 and E5. 2 different heads and faces. One is bare head and one is not. We then move on. There's no musician and there's no flag in here, which is interesting. So we then have the Grand Hammer, which can also be built as a normal Liberator with either a shield and a hammer or 2 hammers. Again, optional head for helmet or otherwise, as denoted here, E16 and E17. And then on our back page, once again, bare head and helmet, bare head and helmet, bare head and helmet, and then the option for the dual hammers or hammer and shield. So everything can be equipped slightly differently, and of course you can go for without helmeted heads, which is really cool. That's nice. So what else do we require? We require these 2 sets of sprues, this one and that one. They are identical. There is no variation here whatsoever between these 2 sprues. So we can only look at the one by popping that to one side. And I've learned my lesson from the prosecutors. We will just look at this in a whole because some things will cross over, I am sure. But contained within here should be 5 Liberators, and same again on the other sprue as well. So our last unit, what does it have in stock for us? Well, firstly, let's look at the shields. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. One of them will be a prime shield and one will be not a prime shield, which is cool, which means you have a spare shield left over for other stuff that you want to do. But all the shields are equipped. Equipped? They are all attached at the sprue around the outside. Here, 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 and here, for example, which is great. We have heads here, 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 and here, and here. They all appear to be attached to the sprue at the neck, which is fantastic. We love to see that, because it just makes it easier to clip them off the sprue, and you don't have to do so much tidy up work, which is nice. We have bodies and such where we have connection points on the underside of the foot, for example, just there, but then we have it on that hip plate again, just like with the prosecutor, so watch out for that. That's going to be one of those really obvious areas where you don't want to have mold lines or gouge marks. Just be really careful with your knife or mold line remover. Same on this body. It's not on the hip plate, for example, but it is on the scabbard just there. Again, it's an outward facing detail. You will notice it if you gouge it too much. This one is going to be right there under the armpit, so that's absolutely fine. Same again on this body, as connection point on the hip plate but under the foot. Same here on this body, it's a connection point on the scabbard. Same here on this body, a connection point on the scabbard. Same here on this body, a connection point on the hip plate. This one does not have it on that hip plate, but it does on that one. For a minute there, I got excited. We have a connection point on the hip plate here as well. So that's 5 for 5 connection points on hip plates, which is not something we love to see, but it is what it is. The hammers appear to all be connected on the hammer facing, which is just something they usually do. Again, it's one of those areas where you just have to be really careful with it, because it can be really noticeable if there's a lip or if there's a little chunk missing or something. So just be very careful with your knife or mold line remover as you go down the front of the hammer facing. Generally it's nice and flat though, so it should be fine. But then we have connection points generally on the top of the pauldron, and this is absolutely fine. You just want to make sure that you get it, because otherwise it'll be really noticeable because it's right around the head. But then we have the connection points on the elbow again, and the elbow is like a ball. It's a very bald piece of armor. So I don't like it because I love the piece, but I don't like when there's a connection point on it, and you can see it here. You can see it there as well, and here, and here, and that one's on the actual gauntlet as well. So that's another kind of slightly congested, more difficult to reach place. We have it on the elbow here, and the elbow here, and the elbow here, and the elbow there. Here an elbow, there an elbow, everywhere an elbow, elbow. So you just have to be careful and move with it rather than cut across it. We've said that many times already as part of this Stormcast review, but it is slightly disappointing to see it on every single elbow, which just adds to the cleanup time when you're building your models, but there's nothing you can do about it. It is the way it is. All of the hammers we've already mentioned, and the shields we've mentioned, so I guess that's pretty much it. It's great. I mean, there's lots of cool stuff to love here. Liberator's nice and simple, elegant, and awesome. So we should see how long it takes to build one. They seem to be, well, at least the prime, as I'm looking at it on the instructions now, is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to 8 different pieces per model. So maybe it shouldn't be too long to build these. It depends again on that clear up time and how long it takes to deal with these connection points in those areas. So we shall be right back in just a moment. So with all of our Stormcast now built, it is time to move on to the Skaven. Yes. So the first one is the Claw Lord on Nor Beast. So in order to build this, we will require this one sprue here, and we will also require the 75mm oval base, as you can see denoted just there in figure 22C. It goes over the page, so we have this bit and then that bit, but really it's only the last stage, which is to actually smash the Claw Lord onto the Nor Beast. And, well, there's no optional extras here. It is as it is, so there's no different posing, no different heads, no anything like that. So it is, as it comes in the box. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. We'll just make sure there isn't another component. No, 14 components. So all in all, not actually that many components for what is going to be a centerpiece model for your Skaven miniatures. So here it is. Here is the sprue. It's looking pretty cool. So let's do the thing, shall we? Let's do the business. Firstly, we have our glaive, halberd, spear, whatever we want to call it, just here. Now, it looks like that is a connection point on a cutting edge, but it is not. It is on the flat part of the back of the blade, which is really nice. So we'd like to see that. We also have quite a spindly little connection here, though, on the thumb of the Claw Lord, so we don't like to see that. But then we have connection points on the smooth details here and here. So these will be nice and easy to clip out around here. But you just want to watch out around there on the thumb and on the underside of the weapon. We have a leg and a bit of cloth, cloak cloth, just here. Again, connection points around the outside here and here. Here is on the outside as well, but then we have one right there on the rounded part of the knee. So we are going to want to be very careful around there and make sure again we move with the curvature of the component. We then have a bit of the Nor Beast's head just here. We have a connection point on the push fit peg. Then we have it just there on the underside of the ear. That one should be just about okay. And then this one is in and around the kind of connection point to the rest of the body, so that's okay. And this one actually just kind of sits upon a seam, so that shouldn't be too bad to deal with either. We have the base itself here, which has connection points all the way around the outside of the rocks. That's absolutely fine. We have a large piece of wood, similarly again. But then we have the body here. We have a connection point on the knee. Always on the knee. Why always on the knee? Because it's the same thing over here as well. Connection point right there on the smooth flesh of the beast, which we don't like to see. We have a connection point around the outside here, but then we have one right on the middle of the back, just there on the spine. So you want to watch out for this one. Just make sure, again, just being very careful with your knife or mold line remover. We have the rest of the Claw Lord's body here. Connection point on the outside, on the outside, on the outside of a skull. That one's one to watch out for. Not on the cutting edge of the kind of bladed sort of trophy rack, I guess, on the back. And we have one here on the inside of the body, but then again, same thing as the knee over here on the rounded part of the armor on the knee. Don't have a connection point on the head or the face, which is great. It's just there on the peg, and again, just here on a bit of kind of the internal workings of the push fit model, so that's pretty good. And then here we have a connection point on the weapon, on a bit of armor, and on the back of some cloth, so that is pretty darned good. We have another connection point here on smooth musculature of the Nor beast. And I think that's pretty much every piece that we've looked at. So all in all, it's actually a pretty good sprue. There are some bits that we normally would expect to see, and they are here. For example, those bits on the knees, which we do just have to bear in mind, and the knees of the Claw Lord itself. But otherwise, I really like this. I think this is top quality. This is pretty good. So we'll see how long it takes to build the Claw Lord on Norbeast in just a moment. So our Claw Lord is all built, looking fantastic. So now it's time for the Grey Seer and the Warlock Engine Seer, or Engineer, because they are both on the same sprue. There it is. What a lovely little sprue this one is. So this was the other one that was the half with the Terminos, I think it was. Can't remember now. Veritant, maybe. Can't remember. That was this morning. So we're going to require this one. Now, the instructions do say that it requires two 32mm bases. Here's the one 32mm base, and the other one that I have is currently being occupied by this Griff Hound. So we're going to actually build these and put them together and see if the Warlock Engineer fits on a 25. That's the 32, but I have managed to find a 32mm base which doesn't have a peg, so I will just cut that peg off the bottom just to make it fit, because honestly I really don't see how this is supposed to fit on a 25. I really don't get it, but that might just be me. So, you know, is what it is. It, again, choice is up to you, but I'm going to keep that one on the 32, and I'm going to shave the peg off the bottom of either the Engineer or the Grey Seer for this bit. So, the instructions, it both fit on a single page here. There we are, Grey Seer and the Warlock Engineer. And as you can see, there are no optional assembly options here. It is just as you see before you. The Grey Seer, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bits. And the Warlock Engineer, 1, 2, 3, 4 bits to put the whole thing together, which is pretty cool. That means there's probably about 10 components on this one sprue. So, pop that to one side just for the moment, and we shall have a look at the sprue. Here it is. So this is quite a weird sprue, as you can see from that angle. Got all kinds of weird geometry going on there, which is interesting. It's probably because of this piece here for the Grey Seer and the bell, because it would otherwise cross that 2D plane a little bit too much, or it'd be in too many components and wouldn't actually push fit together, is what I would guess. Based on how many studs this has, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times this one's been redesigned, interestingly. So Greyseer and Warlock Engineer. So let's start down here. Firstly, we have the head of the Greyseer, and that has a connection point right there on the front of the horn. Boo! We don't like to see that. There's a really obvious place for an accidental gouging or not quite getting rid of the flash, so in some respects that is an advantage, but it does mean you will have to be really careful there around the front of that horn. Just come from this direction, so from the tip downwards, because again you don't want to come this way and end up kind of scraping flat any of the ridges in the horns. We have another piece here, a little tiny bit with part of the bell with a little rat on it. This is just connected once around the outside, so that's pretty nice. We have the Warlock Engineer's body here, connected at the underside of the bit that it's standing on. Then we have here on the smooth armor, and here it's a little bit congested because there is that lip of the next armor plate there, but it is again on a flat piece of armor, so that's perfectly fine to try and get in there and smooth it down with the knife or mold line remover. We then have the Greyseer's staff, and again another connection point right there on the horn. So again, it's exactly the same feedback as this one. Just want to move away from the tip this way, not this way. We have the connection point right here on the tip of the staff, so you want to clip there first, so that way you don't snap or put any undue pressure on there. And then we have a connection point here on the smooth kind of little trinket that's hanging from the staff and on the underside of the staff itself. We have the other bit of the Warlock Engineer, connection point underside, underside, on the smooth bit on the back, and then on the actual weapon. This is a really good bit just here. But then this one, we have connection point on the leather of the glove on the front of the arm in a nice kind of obvious place. So just watch out for that bit because you want to make sure that's nice and smooth. Connection point on the underside here, and then here right against the seam, so make sure you get that bit of flash off there once you clip it, because otherwise the two halves won't go together flush. The Greyseer's knife does not have a connection point on the cutting edge of the blade, which is great. We love to see that just here on the back of the dagger. That's lovely. But then we have another connection point right there in amongst the kind of ridged part of the tail, segmented part I should say, not ridged. We have a bit here on the back of this trailing piece of cloth, so you want to watch out for that. Again, just be nice and smooth with not too much pressure with your knife. And here across the back of the Greyseer as well, in a really obvious position, so just watch out for that bit just there. We have the round outside bit of one of the bases. I think that's for the Greyseer, where it's connected around the outside, so that's all fine and good. All in all, 2 characters compressed into 1 sprue. Very impressive. Looks great. It's a pretty good sprue, I should say. Only a couple of real bits of feedback here and here on the horns. So, and here on the front of the glove. But otherwise, I'm impressed. This one looks pretty good. So let's see how long it takes to build both the Greyseer and the Warlock Engineer. So with all of our characters now assembled, it's time to move on to the next thing, which is the Rattling Warp Blaster. Here it is. Behold. Now this comes across 2 pages, but as you will have just spotted there are no optional assembly bits. Now we do have some special notification of when to do things, so for example just there and just here as well. So it does kind of give you a little bit of an indicator of how it's supposed to go together in that respect, but we don't have like alternative crew or weapon loadouts or anything like that. It is just the way it is on the sprue and in the instructions. So in order to build this guy, we are going to require this sprue here, and we're going to also require the biggest base in the set, which is the 105 millimeter oval base. And how do we know? Because once again, we can just go back to our contents, wherever the heck that is. There we go. And take our 105 millimeter oval base, slot it over, and there you go. That's the correct one. So we're going to require those 2 bits, and well, because it's only the one sprue, that makes it quite easy for us to review. So we're going to have a look at it then. Here it is. So first and foremost, we remove any loose hair from your summer coat. Then what we do is we have a little look at the components. So we're going to start in the top right corner, just up here. So we have our component number 5, where we are pretty good in terms of how it's attached. Generally, one thing we should see with this is, because it is a vehicle / war machine, a lot of it should be kind of quite flat and 2D, and the connection points should be on smooth flat details. Should is the operative term there. So we have, as mentioned, we have component 5 here, where we're connected here on the armor, just there, here on a bit of metal, just there, here on a bit of metal, here on a push peg by the looks of things, and then we also have it here on the joint and here on the joint. Now these two are possibly going to be a little bit irritating because they are on the circular part of that kind of axis. However, it also might not. Don't know if it's going to be covered up by something. I would guess that it's not, because it looks like the wheels slot on here. So you're just going to want to be careful around here to make sure, again, you get off that kind of extra sprue flash, but also that you just move with the curvature of the piece. That way it stays nice and rounded. We have another piece of the rattling warp blaster here, with a connection point on the metal here on the end of the barrel, which will be covered up by this, so that's okay. We don't have to be perfect here, but it is one of those bits that will be just covered up nicely. We have here, which is a little bit congested in between 2 different spikes on either side, one here and one there. So just be careful when you're kind of smoothing it down, because again, you don't want to accidentally chop off one of these spikes. We have a connection point on the underside of this little wheel here, and then here, whilst it is on a rounded part of the Skaven's arm, it is on an armor panel, so at least it's a little bit more forgiving. It's not, for example, right in there on the wrist. Similar here on this piece of machinery, we have connection points all the way around the outside on flat bits of metal, which is nice. And then we have our first set of the crew, where we are connected on the backs, just there, right at the apex of the back as well. So this is going to be one of those bits where you want to kind of go like this, from left to right rather than front to back, in order to get that nice and smooth down, because again, you don't want to kind of flatten off those areas, because that is the hump of the back here and here. Similarly here, we want to be a little bit careful, because that is in the robes of the Skaven itself. However, the ones on the underside are on the underside of the foot, the underside of the push peg, and on the underside of the wheel, where it's nice and flat. So that bit is all nice. The barrels, we are going to have to be really careful around, because it's on the rounded parts of the barrels, but this is the thing that will cover over, for example, any kind of bits like this bit over here and this bit over here. So this is quite a nice piece, although, like I said, just be careful around that circular bit on all 3 points of the axis. So we have another component here, which is very similar to these 2 bits all around the outside. However, on the ball joint here, we are just going to want to be a little bit careful there and there. Again, just moving with the curvature. We have another part of the Skaven's crew, well, we have a connection point on the actual bit of trim here, which is a little bit more difficult to deal with, because if you apply too much pressure, you end up actually cutting out the trim, which you don't want to do. So just be really careful with this bit. It's quite a thick connection point as well, so it will look like a lot of it needs to come off, but actually a lot of it won't need to come off. That's the thing. Connection point here on the Skaven's headgear, which is, I guess, okay, because it's a nice smooth area. It's not on the top of a snout. And then we have it here on the top of the seat, and here just on one of the little cogs of the wheel. So that's going to be a real tricky little bit to make sure you clip that right, and also don't take too much off, because you don't want to remove the cog. Otherwise, the whole machine might break. We have another loose hair, which we will remove. And we have another bit of the Skaven crew, similar to this bit. connection points are the same on the top here and here, so just watch out for that. This wheel over here, we've covered it already on most of these rounded bits. Again, just be really careful. You might have a mold line that goes all the way along the middle. That is just one thing that you usually see on wheels, so just watch out for that. This bit, very similar to this bit, again, same feedback for that. We have a lovely kind of pipe assembly here, which looks awesome, but just want to be careful on that bit there, and here on the rounded part of the drum, which I guess connects to this. This is the other half of this part, same feedback again, connection points on the barrels, on the smooth, and then slightly congested clip point just there, and on the back here, and on the top of the arm just there. We have a cool piece of armor just here, which is nicely attached, just 1 and 2 on 2 smooth flat details. We have the rest of the body, I guess, of the gunner up here, and then we have the plank of wood that is all connected at the push points, so that's a great piece. All in all, it's pretty good. Couple of little areas to worry about, but it's a pretty nice sprue, that one. So we should figure out how long it takes to build. Next up on our Skaven excursion is the rat ogres. Here we are. So, I'll just move that a little bit. So, what we have is we have 3 rat ogres to build, and there is 1 optional assembly. And it's here. So we get either a warp blaster gun or a big bladed arm. Now, the spearhead in that tells you that you need to use the warp blaster gun. So that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be following the blue track here. However, the rest of them, and by the rest of them I mean the other 2, they don't have any optional assemblies apart from the bits of rock that go in the base and the heads here and here. So you do have optional head assemblies. You can pick one that you prefer, but same up here, but otherwise the weapons are the same, right? So it's, you use the gun here, and then you can use over here. You don't really have a choice. It's just a case of, it's the bladed arm. It's the bladed arm just down there. So optional heads, optional rocks, but here you have a variant choice, but we're going to go with the gun for sure. So in order to build these, we are going to require our 3 50mm round bases. There they are, the biggest round bases in the box. And we're also going to require this 1 sprue that initially I thought was 3 little half-size sprues, 1, 2 and 3, but it's not. It is a, well, quarter size. It is 1 half-size sprue and 1 quarter-size sprue stuck together. So what we'll do is we'll just go for it like this, you know, instead of doing any of that snapping. So we'll start over here. Now, what we can probably guess reasonably is that the bodies here, 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 and here, they're all going to be connected in the flesh. It's just the way it is. These are pretty much naked giant rats. So you can see it there. It's connected in amongst the fur. There it's on the smooth flesh, there it's on the smooth flesh, here it's on the edge, there it's on the smooth flesh, smooth flesh, smooth flesh, on the edge, in the cloth. So this is probably the kit I thought was going to probably be the most annoying to have to clear up, because when you have it kind of connected in and amongst the fur, sometimes it's difficult to tell what's sprue and what is fur. So you're just going to want to take it a little bit carefully, a little bit steady at a time as you deal with these kind of large body plates, and indeed anything that's kind of organic. So for example, this bit of arm just here, or indeed this hand, there's a connection point right there on the smooth part of the flesh of the thumb, but then it is connected on the metal as well. Same here, here, and the head is down here. The heads are in two halves, which is a little bit annoying because it does mean that there's a possibility of having a gap going across the top of the head rather than kind of it looking like it's an overlapping piece. They do just seem to be kind of two halves straight down the middle. So particularly with these four pieces around here, you can check number 14 and 15. There's a bit of an overlap there. You've got the little kind of studs as well. So this one's not too bad, but the heads are just something you're going to have to watch out for. You might need a little bit of glue just to make sure that there's no seam there. You also might not. Depends on how good the push pegs are. Things like the weapons and stuff, we should check to see if there's any connection points on any cutting edges. We don't have it here. That is not a cutting edge there either. Not a cutting edge, although it is on the sideways profile of the blade on the actual blade itself. So rather than it being on the tip here, it's actually on the piece. So you just want to watch out for that. And this one actually over here also doesn't have a connection point on the cutting edge, which is very nice. The gun has a connection on the end of the barrel. Same. No, not the same here. That does not have a connection point on the end of the barrel, but it does have it on these kind of rounded features. So just there of the warp lightning blaster, whatever the hell it's called. I can't remember now. One thing we're also going to watch out for is any tails where we have connection points in the segments of the tail. So we have it here, and we have it here, and we also have it here. So they're quite rounded segments. They're very nice. They're very sculpted very nice, but you just want to watch out with them because, again, you don't want to flatten it straight off, especially when everything around it is so nice and rounded. If one of them is just really flattened off with your knife, then it will be really obvious, because it's usually, at least in this case, and I think in the other one, no, this one, I mean, this one's upwards facing, and these ones are on the underside here and here. So these aren't too bad, but that one you are going to have to watch out for. Component 42, because it's right there on the top, so it's very obvious. We have things like hands and stuff where we have connection points on thumbs and inside congested areas like that, near the chain and near the smooth skin of the finger. So we want to watch out there because, again, it's sometimes quite tricky to get your clippers in. So just be careful. Sometimes you might have to clip it all the way up here and then use the knife to pull the thing off. But you know, you'll figure it out, I'm sure. This component right here, we have a connection point right there in the shoulder. So this is one thing to also just bear in mind. So it's there. You can see it here as well. You can see it on there. Oh no, those are on the push points. That's okay. This one over here, you can see it just there. These are upwards facing details. And what I mean by that is when you look at a model from the top down, the upwards facing details are the ones that are on the very top. So you'll easily be spottable from space if you don't take off that bit of flash. So just be careful around there. And again, just not too much pressure with the knife. Just take a couple of passes at it to make sure you get those components nice and smooth when you're trying to remove any extra sprue gates and stuff like that. Armor and stuff when it's connected at the edges is absolutely fine. That's exactly what we like to see. And to be fair to the heads, they are connected on the underside here and here. Yeah, so it's not the end of the world for them, but them being in two halves is a little bit annoying. This one's actually connected on the top part of the head, so I guess 44 for me, and probably 45 would be one I wouldn't use, because I'd much rather use 46 and 47, although that is also connected on the top part of the head, so that's not great. These ones are all on the underside, as is that one. No, that one's on the top part. Okay, just disregard everything I just said. To be fair, most of the parts are actually connected at the top rather than on the underside rather than on the top, so it's not too bad. But just bear that in mind with those. Not only will there might be a seam, you might end up kind of, when the connection points are on the top of the heads, if it's a kind of two-halved head and you push it together and you've taken too much off the top, you'll have this dip along the seam and it'll just be really difficult to fill that. You'll need green stuff for sure to make sure that those things line up. So I always thought this one was going to be a risky sprue. Turns out I was right. It is pretty risky. There's going to be a lot that we have to be very careful with all of that smooth flesh and the tops of those heads, for example. So I guess we're just going to see how long it takes to build one. I would guess that this is probably going to be the kit that takes the longest to build in the box, probably, because of how much cleanup there potentially is. Of course, haven't seen too many mold lines throughout the building process of this box, which has been really cool. Hopefully that continues with these. Next up on the Skaven train, we are going to be building the Warp Lock Jezzails. Now, this will use up the last of our oval bases, which are the 60mm oval bases, which is pretty cool. And as you can see here in the instructions, what we actually have is we have interchangeable parts. Now, the interchangeable parts are the rats that are holding the pervice, I believe is what it's called, or shield that props up the gun. The actual gun itself is not optional. However, what you do have is you have a variant build choice here in the form of a champion or just a normal Warp Lock Jezzail. So, unit 6, entirely possible. But we're going to be building the champion, of course. But what we also have is the option here, 1, 2. It goes this way, from top to bottom, top to bottom, top to bottom, because there are 3. And then you can swap these out at your leisure as to how you want them to look. Then on the back, where we actually finish the instruction part of the Jezzails, there is no additional interchangeable parts or anything like that. So, pretty cool. Got one last unit after this. It's the biggest one. Anyway, Warp Lock Jezzails. We will require those 3 60mm oval bases, but we will also require this one sprue. So, let's have a little look. Starting down here then, shall we? We can see that, for example, we have the big gun, big gun, big gun, big gun. And, well, they've actually got less connection points than I probably normally would have guessed. We have connection points on the end of the barrel here, 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 and here, which is fine. And then we have it here and here and sort of here and here as well. That's kind of on the actual kind of wood of the Jezzails themselves. And same over here. This is on the actual construction, the mechanical parts of the gun. And then we have a connection point on each of the shoulders here, 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 and here. Now those shoulders look to be armored in every case, so at least it's a nice solid detail. It's not kind of attached inside the fur or anything like that, so that's pretty good. But overall, it's really impressive that they're all just kind of one single big piece, which is very, very, very cool. We have the shields here, here, and here, or pervices, pervice. I can't remember, where they all appear to have just a little bit of the actual Skaven that holds it, plus the actual thing itself. So as you can see here, we've got most of the body, well, leg, it's not really most of the body, and the most of the body is actually held separately. We're in pretty good nick so far. However, what I have just spotted is our first connection point against a cutting edge of a blade just there. Now this worries me because there's 40 clan rats yet to go, but it's not quite on the cutting edge. It is on the cutting edge, but it is on the kind of bladed part of the knife, so it almost passes inspection. However, it is just right there, so it's very easy to take the tip off of that, and we don't like that, so we're going to mark this one down for that, unfortunately. We don't have a connection point on this cutting edge of this blade, nor this one, nor this one, nor this one. So it's this one. It's mostly okay, but there is one. I knew there would be one in 70 models. It was bound to happen. The bodies are, as we've kind of discussed so far, and I suspect this will be the case for all of the clan rats as well, is we will have to deal with connection points in cloth here, usually on the arch of the back. So again, just be careful with the angle of attack when you're smoothing it down with your knife or mold line remover. But then we do actually generally tend to have a connection point on the underside of the foot, which is, you know, we're absolutely fine with that. Like that one there, that one there. This one is on top of a head, but it looks to be, no, it's not. It is a flesh. It is the actual snout of the Skaven there, unfortunately. It's our first big no-no there. This one looks to be on the top of a hood. Yes, there we go. That one's okay. What about the other one? Can we find the other one? Ah, there we go. On the snout as well. And on this one. And on this one. Ah, oh dear. Oh dear, oh dear. This is where things are going to start getting a little bit more difficult, I see. The shields are connected in reasonably easy parts underneath on the kind of sprue push point, the peg point. Then we got the here on the armor, here on the wood, on the trim, on the underside, wood, and so on and so forth. So it's generally okay. It's like there's bits that are okay, there's bits that are worse. At the moment, this is probably trending as the most complex of the kits based on the positioning of the connection points on the sprues, unfortunately, because it is a very, very cool kit. So we can only kind of hope that it's all okay to put together, but we will just have to bear in mind all the things we've said throughout the video for the Skaven and indeed the Stormcast. Whenever you see it connected on things like cloth or on musculature or on the snouts, you just want to move across the model like this, from south to north or north to south, rather than going from right to left across it. So you don't want to come across the snout, you want to go, well, you don't want to come up the snout, you want to go across the snout, for example. So just bear that all in mind as you are building your Warplock Jezzails. It's okay. I hope it'll be fine. It's been fine so far. I mean, mold lines look to be in pretty good shape as well. So that's been a saving grace of all of these. So even when we've had kind of slightly dodgy connection spot points on the sprues, there haven't been that many mold lines in the end, so swings and roundabout, I guess. So our second to last model kit, but our last Skaven kit, is of course the clan rats, of which there are 40 of them across these two identical sprues. As you can see, completely identical. I don't think I've proved that very well. Hang on. There we go. Completely identical sprues. So it will be 20 per sprue, basically. And then, of course, in order to build them, we will require our 40 25mm round bases. So pop the sprues to the side to one moment, because as you can see inside the clan rats, we've actually got a number of different variants and things that we can choose. So for the clan rats, we can actually choose a champion to be Verminous, Eshin, or Pestilence, which is pretty cool. You'll then build another one, which won't be it'll use a similar piece at this one, and then this additional piece. That'll be the second one that you build in the 20, because each one will kind of double up twice, apart from things like the flag, the standard, and the musician, the bell, because you won't get 2 bells per unit. You'll get 1 bell, and then you build another one with that sort of hook thing. But anyway, we have the 3 variants that we have here, so 3 different heads for Verminous, Eshin, and Pestilence, and then of course a normal clan rat. It's here that you can then build the champion and then the clan rat instead in just 2 pieces, and this is something they previewed all those months ago in the initial launch stream, that some of these, or they've tried to get these into about 2 pieces each, which is really, really, really interesting and very, very cool. It means building them should be an absolute doddle. In theory, depends on the cleanup. So the champion is actually consisting of 3 parts because of that optional head, but then the normal clan rat is in 2 parts, standard bearer in 2 parts, or in 2 parts for a normal clan rat. the musician in 2 parts, or Clanrat in 2 parts, which is very, 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 very cool. Here we go. Similarly, we have an alternate sergeant build, so you can have a champion, a different champion for the other unit of 20, a different style standard bearer, and a different style musician as well. Albeit you also have just the normal Clanrat. And you can see down here it's denoted in this thing of the 2 standard bearers, 2 different champions in there, and 2 different musicians, which is really, really cool. I like this. I like this a lot. And then, yeah, it seems to be that generally they have kept their promise of it being roughly 2 components per Clanrat, which is just awesome. That's the last kit to build. We haven't got there yet, but it's time to just get on with these. We're probably going to go Verminous for most of these, just because I like it. I like the Verminous scheme. Red and more red. Everybody likes red, right? Anyway, let's have a little look at that sprue. So we don't have to look at both of them because, as mentioned, they are identical sprues. So just trying to find a place for that to stand. There we go. We can just look at one of them, and then obviously our feedback will duplicate based on this one. So it can be snapped down the middle, but that's quite a sturdy sprue, so I'm not going to snap it at this point, because to be honest, I don't think there's going to be anything really new that we're going to be talking about here. So we're only going to really kind of look for things that I think are probably at fault here, because I think the same praise will apply across these. It seems to have been fairly consistent for the Skaven. First things first, I can see it right there, cutting edge blade, connection point. Oh, what a shame. Throw it out, get rid of it, do it again. No, I'm joking, of course. So that's one, but it looks to be the only one. That looks like no, that's not a cutting edge there. No, just the one then. Is it even a cutting edge? Maybe I can take it back. It's not a cutting edge. There we go. I take it back completely. All the blades on this sprue have escaped that terrible fate. So that's really nice. But, I mean, look, there's 20 models on here, roughly 40 components, which is just insane. It's probably about 42, 43 components in total. But, yeah, I mean, look, the connection points are going to be in places on the underside of the push pegs, but then they're also going to be in and amongst like the robes, armor, musculature, smooth musculature, all those kind of things. Probably going to be a couple here and there that are actually inside the like the fur and stuff like that, but ultimately it's actually in really good nick. You know, like to be able to just kind of have these things be in 2 pieces and you just push them together and you've got a Clanrat, that's really, really impressive. It'll make building them super, super quick. So there's a lot to really like about how it's been engineered, kind of irregardless of the way it's been attached to the sprue, although we are doing the sprue review. So you will just have to watch out for all the things we've already watched out for in the previous parts of this video. Look out for any robes, make sure it's not the small of the back. If it is, going to move with the curvature of the piece. Same for any knees, any ankles, any toes, if it's connected there and thereabouts. If it's connected on the top of a head, for example this one just here, you're just going to have to watch out for that kind of thing, and just make sure you're very careful with your knife or your mold line remover, and you're not kind of shedding too much plastic from those really important upward facing details. So they're only 2 pieces each. Let's see how long it takes to build one, and then we can multiply that by 40, I guess. Although it's unfair to do the champion because that's actually in 3 pieces, so you know, well, we'll see. We'll average it out. But should be really, really quick. It's just the volume is the only thing. So now all of our models have been built. we've actually got one last sprue to do, which is the... And to be honest, I was really unexpected for this to be actually plastic in here. I thought it might be cardboard, but we do have the terrain sprue, which is this bad boy right here. It is a hefty, chonky, proper Games Workshop terrain sprue. But what we also have on here are the two measuring sticks. We've got this one and this one just here, which are very cool. So, well, I mean, the instructions are pretty simple. We build this building here with a bell and the corner, build this building here with just the corner, and then the two small scatter piece terrains are K6, K7, K9, K8. So it's basically two pieces, apart from this one, which is three pieces just here. And that's really cool. I just can't believe that we got plastic terrain in this kit, to be quite honest. It's been a long time since one of these boxes came with one of these. So this is the sprue, as mentioned. It is a proper sprue. It's that kind of hefty Games Workshop plastic that we've come to expect from their terrain kits. It's proper rugged. There's not any flex to it. It's the hardcore stuff. So that's cool. And, well, the thing to bear in mind with all terrain is that there's always going to be a big thick mold line that goes all the way around it, because it's all in the big 2D plane. So you can see it just there on this large kind of wall bit here. You can see that long mold line that just goes around there. So it does stand to reason then that along this axis as well, we're also going to have a mold line. Yep, there it is. It's going to come all the way around. Now you don't have to worry too much about the underside, although you will want to smooth that down with your knife or mold line remover, because you want it to sit quite flush to the table. But this is all the terrain you will require for playing your games of Spearhead. So it's actually quite important to build all of this. And well, we should jump in and we should start building it in just a second. It's terrain. There's not really a whole lot to sprue review about it. It's nice that it's very simple, but we shouldn't have too many kind of difficult areas to clip, because it's terrain. I don't know how many times I'm going to say it's just terrain, but that is what it is. We do have a connection point, for example, right here on the top of this skeleton's head. That's one thing to probably watch out for. But ultimately, if you're a little bit rougher with this, it's okay. You just have to watch out for areas like the inside of this archway. See, there's a big mold line right there, and you'll have it again just over here on this bit. So the thing to do here is to use your knife or your mold line remover and just come in and just make sure you just get it off like so. Now, just because it's in 2 or 3 pieces doesn't mean it's going to be particularly quick to put together, because if you're going to get rid of all of these mold lines, then that will be the bit that takes you the longest to do. But it is worth it, because at the end of the day, the third army on the battlefield is the terrain, and this will go a long way towards setting you up for a terrain collection for AOS going forward, because it's not as important in AOS as it is in 40k. You don't need tons of line of sight blocking, so it's actually easier to assemble a terrain set for games of Age of Sigmar than it is for 40k. You don't need tons and tons of large line of sight blocking buildings and stuff like that. You can just use lots of things like trees and these little bits of ruin here and there. I'm interested to see what this actually means going forwards for terrain, if we're going to be kind of have a expansion kit to this, which I will absolutely get if there is one, which I'm guessing that there will be, given that there's some in the box. But there you go. As you can see, I've already just cleaned that bit off, and then it's just worth just going around and getting the rest of it. And you can be a little bit rougher with it than you can with the components, because ultimately it doesn't really matter too much if there's little chunks missing here and there if you're a little bit too rough with it, because, well, it's the bit you're going to spend the least amount of time painting. Blimey, there's a lot of stuff. There is a huge amount of things that are contained within this box of awesomeness. So thank you for sticking with me until this far. Now, as mentioned, I have managed to paint one of the spearheads, and there's going to be no prizes for guessing which one it absolutely was. So, roll the tape, future Josh.
Yes, I've painted up the Stormcast. Of course I did, because they're my favourite boys. So we've done the Lord Vigilant, the Lord Veritan and Griffhound, 5 Liberators and 3 Prosecutors. This is all you require for the Vigilant Brotherhood, I think it's called, the spearhead that's contained within the box. Now the Reclusians and the Memorians and the Terminos and the Night Quest are yet to come, and I haven't actually started the Skaven yet. So they're next on my to-do list, at least to get their spearhead finished, and then we shall continue with the rest of the box. But look at it! Doesn't it look so fantastic?
Only the faithful. Yes. Hallowed Knights. All done. I'm really pleased with how they've come out. I've been painting them the last week, and I've just been really kind of zoned in on painting them, and they just look incredible. And those painting videos will be coming very soon. However, I need to get the Skaven done, and then we shall truly start releasing them. Probably a video every single day for the foreseeable future. So again, make sure you subscribe for that, because there's going to be a lot of content. But enough about painted miniatures, let's talk about the box contents, because this is where we get into the numbering and reviewing kind of thing. So, firstly, let's look at this objectively, or try to look at this objectively. What do you get in the box? Well, you get 2 armies, of course, and you get a core book. You also get the hardback book for Fire and Jade, the spearhead rules. You get the mat to play your spearheads on. You get the General's Handbook cards. You get the spearhead cards, and you get a set of terrain as well for playing your games of spearhead, as well as a range ruler. The only thing missing here is dice. Now, I'm not sure why there isn't a pack of 8 little white dice in there. Maybe it would have made it much heavier than it already is. I mean, the box is seriously weighty, but that gives you almost everything you need to play the game. You just need some dice, which genuinely, it seems like splitting hairs, I think, but that, I think, is a criticism. It's not quite everything you need to play games of Age of Sigmar. You are just missing those dice. So, unfortunately, no dice in the box. No dice. Shut up about the dice, man. Just get on with it. So that is already an incredible amount of stuff that's in here. And, you know, that for me, we're probably going to average that one out at about 9 out of 10. Just because no dice. But those actual sprues themselves. Now, push-fit models seem to be a kind of controversial thing in this day and age. I don't see why, because I quite enjoy push-fit models as somebody who doesn't really enjoy building so much. It means that a lot of the kind of difficult parts of putting stuff together are just removed for me. So I'm able to put them together really quickly and really enjoy that process more so than I would building a normal miniature. But I know that your experience may vary based on whether you like push fit or not. The easiest fix is just to clip the pegs off, and then you can just use glue instead. But that will lengthen the amount of time it takes for you to build your miniatures. As for the Stormcast sprues, they were in pretty good nick, I have to say. I think there's a couple of points, 1 or 2, where it's just like, why are we still doing this in this day and age? But there weren't any kind of connection points on cutting edges of blades, which is, you know, good stuff. I thought they were a lot of fun. There was only a couple of places here and there where it was a little bit difficult to smooth the pieces down. That being said, the very presence of those will also take points off of how good the box is. So I think that the Stormcast sprues probably sit at around about a 9 out of 10 on the Land Raider scale. So 9 and 9 so far. As for the Skaven, well, Skaven were in pretty good nick as well. There's things, of course, that you can't avoid, having connection points on skin and cloth when your models are mostly skin and cloth. So those things are a little bit frustrating to have to deal with when it comes to clipping and cleaning off with your knife or your mold line remover. But at the same time, there's a lot of intelligent placement in those sprues, kind of going alongside that what I would call unintelligent. There's quite a lot of unintelligent places that the connection points have been placed on the sprues for the Skaven. So it's kind of a mixed bag for them, but in a positive way, because I think they've done a reasonably good job with them. They're not the worst set of miniatures I've ever built. They're not the best, but they're not even close to the worst. That makes it sound like I'm quite ambivalent about them, but no, I thought they were reasonably well done. A massive thing that goes in favour of the Skaven is that there's 40 clan rats in here, and each of them consisted of at most 4 pieces. But most of them, the majority of them, I should say, were in 2 pieces, which is pretty darn special. Look, if it had been any more than that, if they'd been like 4 or 5 pieces each, like you would expect to see from like a multi-part kit, they would be really annoying to have to build 40 of them. It would take forever. Like, yeah, it would take a really seriously long time. And the fact that these are 2 push-fit pieces and your Skaven are done for the clan rats, that's really good. So like I said, there's a lot of kind of cloth connection points, a little bit of skin connection points and all this kind of thing. Most of the weapons don't have connection points on the actual cutting edges of their blades. There's 1, I think 2, I can't remember now. It's been about 8 days since I last built them. But I think generally the Skaven probably gets an 8 out of 10. Like I said, there's lots to love there. There's a little bit more criticism to be had. You can't just connect everything at the underside of the base kind of bit where it screws into the base, it pushes into the base. I get that, but at the same time I kind of wish there was a little bit more of there not being enough connection points in hair and stuff. That would be really great. And whilst we haven't actually talked about rules or anything like that, we're going to be doing that later on, but for now this is just about the box contents. And well, based on everything that we've talked about, the contents, Stormcast, the Skaven, just the mechanics of hobby modelling, I think, well, we've had a 9 out of 10, a 9 out of 10, and an 8 out of 10, which to me gives a average of, what would that be? 9, 18, 27 divided by 3, 9, 18, 20, no, 9, 18, 26 divided by 3. What's that? It's like 8.5, something like that. I think an 8.5 out of 10 for this box is probably fair, if we're going to be really objective about it. Now, if we're not going to be objective about it, I'm going to go for a channel first 9.9 out of 10, because it's Age of Sigmar. I adore it. I love it. I think it's an absolutely cracking box. I think it's absolutely fantastic. There is no question in my mind that this is the best launch box that Games Workshop has ever produced. Even when you compare it to Dominion. Dominion had a Yndrasta in it, which was the centerpiece model for the Stormcast, but it's also a named character, and you might not necessarily want to work with a named character. You might not want to have that anywhere near. I mean, she's beautiful, absolutely cracking model, and everything that was in that box was fantastic. However, there was a little bit more criticism to be had with that box, because you had things like the Praetor's cloaks that didn't go together very well at all. Like, not even close. Whereas now we have Reclusians and their cloaks are like one piece and you just slot it straight into the back, which is really cool. With Age of Sigmar, you always kind of see a development, I think, in their products. I don't think at any point Age of Sigmar really tends to rest on its laurels. Dominion was a huge step up from Soul Wars. Soul Wars was a huge step up from Age of Sigmar Mighty Battles in an Age of an Ending War, to give it its full title. And as I say, Skaventide, it is a massive step up from Dominion. And, well, honestly, it seems a bit early at this point, but What the hell are they going to do for Age of Sigmar 5th edition? How do you go up from here? Because that is my expectation. And my expectations are thoroughly through the roof for what's going to come post this box launch. Stormcast, Skaven, I'm expecting big things. So the objective reviewer score, well, as objective as they possibly can be, I'm giving it an 8.5 out of 10. But the Warhipster approved score is a 9.9, a channel first. Hey! Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this one, and I hope you found it useful for planning whether or not you're going to pick up your copies of Skaventide in a week's time today, as of the video's publishing date, which is the 22nd of June. Goes on pre-order on the 29th. You'll be able to get your copies pre-ordered then, and it should be out on the 13th of July. And as I mentioned before, we're going to have lots and lots of painting content coming out of this box, one for every unit that's in there. And then we've got a couple of surprises further down the line in terms of things like alternative storm hosts and some of the kind of different schemes for like the clan rats and stuff. There's going to be a lot of painting videos coming out of this one, but we're not going to start them until the 29th of June because, you know, you guys don't have the models yet. So you're not even thinking about playing. You haven't even pre-ordered it yet, and there's no point putting a painting video out just yet. So don't worry, they are coming. But it does mean that you'll be able to tell me what you're the most looking forward to in terms of the painting videos. And that is the order we shall go in. One each per day for a little while. Stormcast, then Skaven. So let me know what you want to see first down in the comments below, and I'll get on it. If I haven't already done it, I will get on it. I promise.
If you enjoyed this video, you love the channel, and you'd like to support me further, you absolutely can do so by heading to patreon.com/warhipster, just like all of these wonderful, amazing people have done. And alternatively, you could become a YouTube channel member by clicking on the join button below, exactly like these fabulous folks have done, scrolling up on the screen before you. There are so many of you out there that it really takes my breath away, and I cannot thank you enough for everything you do, as without you I wouldn't be able to keep making these Contrast Plus videos. And if you really like this video and you want to send me a little thanks, just click on the thanks button just below this video. Don't forget to share it, like it, comment on it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and to make sure you stay up to date, don't forget to click the bell icon. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all very soon in the next one. Happy wargaming.